Wow. Okay. Well, that changes things. Kind of a big deal. This video is a little bit outdated instantly. Cool. Well, I guess I gotta make another one of these because this is not accurate anymore. That's for sure. Yeah, that's a lot to talk about. Hey everybody, welcome back to Battle Ready Inc. So yes, we've got a new ban list, and this is actually for the English format. This is one of the first times we've had an announcement that takes place before the JP's format. So we've got the Doro Gray, which we've been wondering when that was going to happen, as well as some other big hits. I think the biggest one that's already ruffling feathers is the Shoutmon Cross 4, and for good reason. This deck just came out. People just invested a ton of money into getting the pre-release versions of these cards, getting the the alt arts for the deck and everything like that, and then immediately hitting essentially kind of the boss monster. They still have Cross 5, but Cross 4 was like the big one with that after attack or end of attack ability, which is what really made that deck super strong. Losing it, going to 1, definitely hurts considerably. And yeah, people being upset about that, I get it. I mean, that's a lot of money to invest in a deck, and then immediately it gets hit. Now, this is supposed to take place on November 11th, and November 11th is, of course, the release date for EX3. So this is essentially a hit because these decks were so good that there was no reason to buy EX3. There was no reason to play any of the decks in EX3 because none of the power levels compared to the current decks of the format. We saw this big time in the JP format when EX3 dropped, and it was like, oh, people were excited for Examon and things like that, as well as the new Imperial, and it didn't do anything to their meta. Their meta didn't even like slightly impact their meta. Everyone just kept playing the old decks. No one even touched EX3 because the decks were fun, but they weren't on a power level like these other decks. So I understand the need to hit it on November 11th. But man, that Cross 4 hit is really like, oh, so soon. Like, I don't even want to play the deck, but I still feel for the players that invested a bunch of money into it. Like, in theory, yes, it was all low rarity stuff, like only a single super rare, so not that big a deal. But dang, like, this is massive for that deck. But so will the deck change at all? Also, losing Sunrise Buster is huge for a couple decks. Also for the Shoutmon deck. But being able to lose that ability to play Tamers, as well as this was kind of the big removal for that deck, because they had a field full of red and yellow Tamers, so they can really easily nuke something with this guy. Losing this is also pretty impactful. So not just losing the Cross 4, but also losing the Sunrise Buster down to 1 as well is pretty big. So I think that deck is definitely going to drop down in consistency. Like, it's still good. It still has Cross 5, and there's other Shoutmon crosses that they can use instead of the Cross 4. Just the Cross 4 was that end of attack, being able to save your whole stack and unsuspend like your Taiki, so you could use your Taiki ability again. Like, that's still pretty big. I think the deck's not dead. I think you're just gonna have to approach it differently now. But also losing Sunrise Buster is pretty rough. I don't think it's going to be like where we had it in our tier list, where we had it like S tier. I think, honestly, there is no S tier for this format. Everything will be A tier, or if you want to look at it, everything in A tier moves up to S tier because it doesn't have these abusive decks anymore to deal with. Which, this is kind of good for everyone else. I still feel bad for those Shoutmon players that just invested a bunch of money in this deck, thinking they were going to get some good longevity out of it. The Dora Gray, which we expected for a while now, we just weren't sure what was going to happen. It is still a little unfortunate. I still don't know if it's worthy of getting hit. I think my only issue with it is, like they said, you can have like a ton of security attack underneath that, you can build and build. And there's like lots of ways to slide X antibody cards underneath, like with the Yuji and stuff like that. But it's the DP reduction, that prevention, that has always been a really big one for me. They can go into Dora Gray and then just go right into their Alphamon, because this deck can gain a ton of memory and just absolutely pop off super easily, and just go ham on your opponent, especially with like the cool boys and things like that. So, and then they can go right into Alphamon. Alphamon's super protected, and then they can just start comboing like crazy, and just like, then go into the Aoryuken on top of that. And then they're swinging twice, and they've got a bunch of security attack, and they're protected because of the Dora Gray when Digivolving ability. Like it's still super strong. I think we can just build Alphamon decks more pure Alphamon, so we can drop like the Dora Gray and the Dex Dora Grays down, and add in the actual Alphamon cards, which is fine because they're still good. Like, we used them before, we can use them again. They're still solid cards. It's just going to impact the deck building a little bit, right? You're going to lose a little bit more value on your cool boys, things like that. But still not like detrimental for that deck. That deck is still super strong. So yeah, Alphamon's still in a good position, I think, overall. But this does hurt. Don't get me wrong, this does hurt. There's just other building ways to get around it. Like the Cross 4 and the Sunrise Buster is way more impactful for Shoutmon, but this deck was on a higher level anyway, so hitting it harder makes sense to bring it down. And then just kind of like love tapping Alphamon a little bit to bring it down to, put it on par with all these other decks. We saw that, I think it was Latin America, they just had theirs, and the two best decks, or two top decks, were both Alphamon, so it was still doing pretty well. So it makes sense to hit these guys. And the last one, Calling from Darkness, this has been a cry for a long time to hit this card, simply because I think one of the biggest things for it is the fact that you don't have to delete something. If you have an empty field, you can just play this for one and add 2 Digimon back to hand, like from your trash. That's pretty big, okay? The fact that you never had to delete anything was a little too much, okay? I think the requirement to make it delete something should have been there, to make it mandatory. They could have maybe done an errata on that instead. I don't know. Or just come up with a new card. Maybe make it 2 cost and make it mandatory to delete something, then add from trash. But they said that it enabled loops, and absolutely. I mean, this card has been awful for a long time. You put it in BL Star, right? And BL Star loves this card because they can just repeatedly go into Eismon scatter modes and just get all this value, right? Or they can just play their BL Stars and then add their BL Stars right back to hand. Yeah, they've got other ways to add BL Star to hand, but like this was a big one for them to be able to add BL Star back off of this guy. Makes the Dobermons a little bit more important. If you're not running Dobermons already in BL Star, you're definitely going to want to now with the Calling from Darkness hit. It's still at a 1 of, and I think BL Star is still solid. I don't think you ever really played more than 2 Calling from Darkness anyway, like maybe 3. But still at a 1 of, like that's still fine. Like you can still play it at a 1 of, you can still play the BL Star deck. You also can still play all these other decks. Like, at the most, I think Calling from Darkness was only at a 2 of in most decks anyways, so hitting it to 1 is like, okay, whatever. It is a powerful card. Now, if they had banned it, that would be a little bit more impactful, but just limiting it to 1 from people already just playing it at a 2 of isn't, like, super crazy, especially in Purple, which has an insane amount of draw power anyway, so they can just draw and trash the cards they don't need and then keep the Calling. It just makes it less of a throwaway card now at this point, and a little bit more impactful. But still solid. I mean, it still needed to be done, right? It just, you can't abuse it quite so much anymore, and you got to make it really count, which I'm all about that. Making cards count is always a big thing. Going back to Sunrise Buster, though, one that I did gloss over, a big one for me, Yellow Hybrid Maid Mode. Ouch. That's unfortunate. What are we going to do with Yellow Hybrid at this point? People were, playing the Rise engine. So, do we keep the red rookie package? I think that's a big question now. Is Maid Mode even worth it anymore? Like Maid Mode could still tack in the Holy Waves, or not the Holy Waves. The one that gives security attack minus to the whole opponent's field. Like, we can still tech that in, but really we were teching that in to do a Shoutmon, and Shoutmon's not going to be, just repeatedly going cross 4, cross 4, cross 4. Do we really need that tech as well? So it's a big question of what do we do with Yellow Hybrid at this point. I'm still just trying to figure it out. Like, I just woke up and like jumped into this, trying to figure out where we're going to go with our strategies moving forward. But Sunrise Buster going down definitely impacts red yellow hybrid. There's still we could go back to like the purple, like we did in BT7, where it was the purple yellow hybrid strategy. We can run like the Psychmons and things like that. But again, do we need to run Psychmon if Shoutmon's going to get hit that hard? Then we can run some other stuff as well, and then we can run Schwartz. Oh man, we still have the yellow purple security control, which is going to be great. That's what I'm running currently, and it's doing phenomenal. But yeah, Sunrise Buster hitting yellow hybrid. I'm definitely curious to see what your plans are for yellow hybrid moving forward. Do we drop maid mode entirely? Do we? Yeah, what do we do? I mean, yellow hybrid might finally be dead at this point. It could be. We could even switch to a blue. I did debate a blue where we go with Demi Vmon and then go jamming Vmon. So we still get a little bit of draw power similar to Gilmon, but instead of getting that that essentially a third draw, you get the draw for Evo and then the swing draw 2. It's draw for Evo, swing, draw 1, but you got jamming instead of the extra draw. So maybe there's something there for blue yellow hybrid possibly. I don't know. I mean, we could run things like Hammer Spark, but I don't know if we really need to. I was originally going to run it for Cocytus because then we could run Cocytus to deal with the Shoutmon. But if Shoutmon's not a thing anymore, then do we really need to run the blue package to run Cocytus? I don't know. There's going to be a lot of theory crafting on that one for sure. Very curious to see where it goes moving forward. I'm definitely curious of your guys' opinions, though. We'll definitely go back and revisit this tier list because a lot of things were placed on this tier list in anticipation for Shoutmon. With Shoutmon being, the number one contender, a lot of the decks that we expected to do well were decks that would counter that deck. So if they don't have to counter Shoutmon anymore, like these decks are definitely going to fall out of S tier. Like I said, I don't think there's even an S tier anymore. Yellow hybrid definitely will fall down. Like low road tier now. Like it's losing some very impactful stuff, really important. Just off the top of my head, some things that I expect to do well. Metal Garurumon definitely will probably shoot up to the top. Grandis is still super solid. I think Yellow Purple Security Control is still super solid because it deals with both of these decks pretty nicely. And those will probably be the 3 big contenders. And then after that, anything else that's fast, like we got our Imperial and Armor. Level 4 Armor Rush decks, they'll do really well too because they're similar to Melgar, but they're a little bit less consistent. And then Bloom Lord and Jesmon kind of tacked on at the end here. Then that'll probably be our A tier with does War Greymon even still follow? Like, where does War Greymon sit? If its best deck that it could counter isn't in the format anymore, like what happens? Like these guys, all 3 of these guys might instantly slide to the end of A tier. We'll see what happens though. There's a lot to go over, and this is just like me spitballing at the moment. Nothing is solidified just yet, but definitely excited to see where this format goes now because it's going to be crazy. And we got to add in all these EX3 decks as well. So yeah, definitely got a lot to think about.